At first, Ben Grimm was a normal man working alongside a scientist named Reed Richards. They worked extremely well together as colleagues and best friends. Reed became interested in a cosmic storm containing the same elemental energy that he assumed to have caused the evolution of early planetary life. He begged Victor Von Doom, a rich entrepreneur and old colleague, to help him study the cosmic storm by claiming it could cure diseases and extend life. Reed's proposal was accepted, and the trio, along with Johnny and Sue Storm, traveled outside Earth's atmosphere toward the approaching storm. They went up in suits made up of self-regulating and unstable molecules, which, while meant to protect them, became a factor in their mutations. Ben went outside of the spaceship to collect samples. As he was collecting data, the rest of the team was alerted to the storm's strikingly fast approach, but it was too late. Ben was hit with the full brunt of the storm, while the rest of the team experienced a weaker wave. Soon, they were in a specially designed hospital where they developed their superpowers. Ben had fully transformed into the Thing. His entire body was made up of rocks, even his internal organs. His mutation enhanced his strength and power, giving him the ability to involuntarily pummel just about everything on Earth.
Before we get into how the Thing became what he is, let me explain how Earth's electromagnetic field prevents radiation from damaging Earth. We have a nearly impenetrable barrier outside Earth called the Van Allen belts. Van Allen belts are a collection of charged particles that are gathered in a place by Earth's electromagnetic field. They can wax and wane in response to energy from the sun. Since Van Allen belts and the electromagnetic field protect Earth from the radiation of solar flares, the ship the Thing was in must have been far out in space in order to be affected by the cosmic storm. Now, where did the solar flare come from and what did it contain? Stars often contain the element hydrogen. Hydrogen is then fused together to make helium, and they continue to fuse it to make very reactive elements like lithium. Eventually, a steady wind of particles that blow from the star releasing a solar flare containing very reactive elements. The high reactivity of solar flares leads some scientists to believe that solar flares may have been responsible for providing the energy to transmute the Earth's chemical sludge into complex molecular equipment of life, such as RNA and DNA.
The UVA radiation inflicted by the solar flares led to indirect DNA mutation. Although the rays themselves do not have an effect on the DNA, they led to changes in the cell that ultimately increased the rate of genetic mutation.
When UVA radiation interacts with the body, it works by generating molecules called free radicals within the cells.
Free radicals are very reactive molecules. They interact with the DNA and interfere with the normal processes that prevent DNA damage, so they ultimately increase DNA mutation.
At the same time, the UVA radiation is directly damaging DNA by promoting the development of cross-links between certain chemicals within DNA, which leads to the strand of DNA breaking.
When the cell has to repair these breaks, there's an increased risk of mutation due to the possibility of a mistake in the repair.
When the Thing was hit by a solar flare, it would usually be life-threatening, but this wasn't a normal case. It was possible that the unstable molecules of the suits that they were wearing when they were hit by the solar flare were possibly willing to bond with anything. When the solar flare containing hydrogen, helium, and lithium, very reactive elements, hit them, they could have bonded with the unstable molecules within the suit. The solar flare exposed the Thing to a massive amount of UVA radiation. Considering that UVA radiation increases the rate of genetic mutation by generating reactive free radicals within the cells that ultimately increase DNA mutation, the unstable molecules in the suits and the reactive elements in the solar flares must have messed with this process of genetic mutation by reacting with also very reactive free radicals being produced by his cells. This unusual combination of reactive particles all in the same place may have resulted in the unusual powers gained by the Thing.
Solar flares emit many different types of radiation with rays all across the electromagnetic spectrum. Their wavelengths can vary, and so could the radiation that Ben Grimm could have received when he took on the solar flare.
Along the electromagnetic spectrum, the sun's rays would range between frequencies of radio waves and gamma waves. The most common type of ray emitted from solar flares would be the ultraviolet ray. Ultraviolet rays, or UV rays in short, have wavelengths varying from 400 to 10 nanometers, and with these particles being emitted as different types of UV radiation. Different types of ultraviolet radiation affected Ben Grimm in different ways. UVA radiation known for its large wavelength and smallest of all UV frequencies, can penetrate through human skin, causing his skin to tan immensely to an orange-ish skin tone. Like UVA, UVB also has the ability to tan skin, but it can also alter the cell cycle, resulting in skin cancer. This type of radiation has an even shorter wavelength, meaning that the wave travels with an increased burst of energy.
However, those aren't the only types of radiation that could have affected Ben Grimm. UVC is even more harmful with, even higher frequencies, but these rays are capable of being very harmful. Luckily, most of it is absorbed by Earth's atmosphere. Unluckily, Ben Grimm was not within Earth's atmosphere. UVC light is the most harmful of the bunch and kills microorganisms by destroying the organism's DNA and RNA. Since these rays are capable of affecting DNA, they may have damaged Ben Grimm's skin cells' DNA, causing them to mass replicate cells using the damaged DNA as the basis for transcription and translation. This could have resulted in his rocky exterior, some genetic mutation that made the cell walls or membranes of his skin cells hard and resilient.
Before his exposure to the solar flare, Grimm was a member of the United States Air Force, which followed a strict training regimen including pre-military boot camp and daily ground training. The military training encompassed full-body workouts to improve soldiers' endurance, strength, stamina, and teamwork. After his exposure, he weighed around 500 pounds. The cellular deconstruction and DNA mutation caused all the cells and tissues within his body to be made up of a rock-like substance. His military training would then prove insufficient in developing his super strength capabilities. Due to his heavy weight and mass, the optimal exercise routine would involve calisthenics and weightlifting. However, no amount of physical exercise would visibly or physically alter his cellular makeup, since the muscle tissues in his body were rebuilt into a solid, unchangeable texture.
In order to create the Thing, a certain amount of CGI and VFX are combined with SFX to bring him to life. However, for the Thing, there was a multi-stage process in order to create an image that represented the Thing in his entirety. First, there were 2D sketch models created by artists of how the Thing would look, which would then be taken and created as a 3D mold that was worn by the actor Jamie Bell. The 3D mold was a close comparison to the ideal image, but is too unrealistic, which is where computer-generated imagery, or CGI, comes in. At first, the special effects crew had trouble because they had the idea that, as a joint bends, the opposite side would reveal rocks coming out. That would mean multiple layers of rocks would reveal themselves as the rocks stretch. But they agreed it was visually noisy, so they ended up with a slightly different approach, where the rocks slide on top of each other. Once the logistics of the Thing's movement was agreed upon, the VFX crew began the animating. In post-production, before the visual effects crew can edit, the Thing had to be masked individually from the green screen background. Unlike the Hulk, who was played by Mark Ruffalo in a CGI suit, the Thing was a large-sized costume of itself, and was masked as the final product. Once they had the Thing isolated properly, they began their editing, starting with texture. A set of layers would be applied to the Thing, giving him the needed texture. By using a photo shoot of hundreds of rocks and using them as a reference, the VFX crew were able to replicate the rocky texture that best suited the Thing. The first layer of texture added was displacement, which affected minuscule details like skin composition and facial movement to make the Thing's face replicate muscle movement in order to show emotion and expression, like surprise or anger. Next is color adjustment and shine or obscurity removal, in order to have the Thing, who is made of harsh rock, match the atmosphere of the setting. Next was specular, or reflected light, which is applied so that the Thing reflected light based on the position of the light source in the setting. And lastly, animating the movement of the rocks for the Thing when he moved his joints, arms, or any appendage.
It's time to end this.
No, Vic. It's clobbering time. Damn, I've been waiting to do that.